Welcome back to the podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about why I see most body recomps fail and what you're doing wrong and how you need to actually shift into a different plan that's going to help you see results. And by results, we're not talking about just seeing the number on the scale go down. We're talking about actually seeing lean muscle mass, actually seeing that we're leaning out and having less overall body fat and having that leaned and toned physique that you are looking for and what that actually means in a body recomp. Because I think that a lot of people get that information wrong and they're looking at the wrong thing when it comes to an overall body recomp, and they are chasing the wrong results. And therefore, because they have the wrong results in their mind, they are looking at old dieting fads, they're looking at old information, or they're just looking at the wrong information in general, and they're not going to get the results that they want. They might have that skinny fat look, they might not see results, the scale may not be moving, and it causes you to get into this yo-yo cycle of constantly trying to get to the results, but then not getting them and not really sure what you're doing wrong. So we're going to talk about a little bit more about what a body recomp actually is, how to determine if you're in a successful body recomp versus if you're not, and what you should be changing in the process if you're struggling with this. The first is understanding what a body recomp is. Body recomp in full term is body recomposition. Your body mass is made up of a lot of different factors, but a lot of people tie that number to body fat. More women that I've talked to determine their body weight as their overall fat composition, and that's really not what the number is telling you. Your body weight is an overall body mass that you have in terms of water weight, your hair, your skin, your nails, your organs, your muscle mass, and your body fat. But only a percentage of that is actually made up into body fat. And there's a lot of weight that is given to the scale for a lot of women, and they find a lot of purpose in having a lower number or they feel better mentally. But that doesn't mean that you have efficient or even the right body composition that's going to help your metabolism be at its most effective rate and helping you burn more body fat on its own. It could mean that you have a sluggish metabolism if you're not focusing on the right things, even if the number on the scale is maybe near where you want it to be. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you've done the body composition correctly. So if you are struggling because the number on the scale is not moving and it's causing you to get in a yo-yo cycle, we are looking at the wrong metrics and you're going to feel defeated because it's not actually going to determine what is happening if your body is actually having a body recomposition. So body recomp is when you change up your body's makeup and your overall body mass by the percentages of what your body is made up of. So if you're, let's say, 35 years old, you're around 5'2", 5'4", and you're 170 pounds. If your body fat is, let's say, 40% and your muscle mass is around the 25, 30%, you're on the high scale of body fat and you're on the low scale of muscle mass. So your goal would be to do a body recomposition where you were restructuring what your body is made up of and increasing your muscle mass and decreasing your body fat, in turn changing your body composition. So that is what a body recomp is. There's a lot of misinformation on the correct usage of a body recomp, and a lot of people think it's building muscle mass and losing body fat at the same time. While yes, that is true, it is a process of restructuring your body composition, and in turn of your training and your nutrition and your daily habits, you are changing the way that your body is holding onto muscle mass, is burning body fat, and ensuring that you are increasing the percentage of your body mass to be more muscle mass and decreasing the percentage of your body fat in your overall body mass. So that gives you a little bit more clarity on what a body recomp is and how to restructure your thinking around it, because it's not necessarily that you have to do a specific workout routine or that you have to do a specific nutrition plan. You have to do a very strategic approach to this, because when you want to lose weight, you have to be in a caloric deficit. But you have to remember, like we talked about with your body composition, that is just weight. That does not mean you're only losing body fat. A lot of times you will see people lose water weight first, muscle mass second, and body fat third, if at all, unless they have a very strategic approach to how they're doing it. If you just cut your calories in half or you go to your lowest end of your calories and you eat there as long as you possibly can, you will eventually burn out. Your metabolism will slow down. And it does not mean that the number that has changed over time is coming from body fat. Generally, it has come from a decrease in carbs, a decrease in overall calories, and you've now lost water weight and more likely muscle mass, depending on how long the term that you have done your caloric deficit. That is where a lot of the struggle comes from. And then there's a point where that's going to plateau out because now your metabolism slows down because it's adaptable. Your body is very adaptive, it's very intelligent, and its goal is to make sure that you stay alive and thriving. So there's essential functions that are going to take a majority of your calories for the day, and your energy is going to slow down, your metabolism is going to slow down, and you're going going to notice that things are going to plateau. So there has to be a strategic approach to it. It can't just be a matter of eating as little as possible and hoping that your body is going to naturally build muscle mass and lose body fat, and you're going to have your perfect recomp in a couple of weeks. Generally, what actually happens is it comes down to what your nutrition looks like, your consistency and your adherence to your nutrition, and your overall strength and progression in your lifts, and how frequently you are doing that on a consistent basis. Those are the key metrics that we look at to determine if you're actually going to see a successful body recomp. And if those things aren't aligned, or if there's something that is misaligned, it's going to throw off your ability to actually see a successful recomp. And it's going to cause you to feel like you're constantly putting in effort, you're eating as little as possible, you feel miserable, and you're not seeing results. And I see this from a few things: eating as little as possible and focusing on diet foods, not necessarily incorporating foods that you enjoy or incorporating foods that are filling. They're focused on is eating as little as possible. And you almost have this like starving feeling for the rest of the day because you're constantly just focused on what can I eat that's not going to be a lot of calories, and focusing on low calorie foods, not foods that are going to fulfill you, help you sustain energy, keep your hormones happy and healthy, and ensure that you can lift heavy. So that's a completely different variable when it comes to nutrition. We're looking at recomp versus just eating as little as possible. The training component I see is just adding hours of cardio in, or just ensuring that you have high levels of cardio throughout your training period, and just going to the gym. A lot of times it doesn't mean that there's a solid plan, that you're following any sort of progressive overload plan, you're not tracking any data, and it's kind of just winging it and hoping that it's going to work out in the end because you're putting in the effort. And I did an episode on this a couple of weeks ago, and I'll link it in the show notes for you. And it talks about why effort doesn't necessarily correlate to results, and the importance of understanding what you're actually doing, and are you tracking the right things to ensure that results are inevitable. If you are just throwing effort in and hoping that it's going to get you results, more likely than not, if you're focusing on old data or the wrong things and you're not actually tracking it, you're not going to see the results that you want, and it's going to cause you to feel like you're constantly on this yo-yo cycle. So it's important that you know that you're focusing on the right things and you have the structured approach of what you're following to ensure that you're going to get the results that you want. And going to do endless amounts of cardio, eating as little as possible, it's not going to help you build muscle mass, and more than likely it's going to burn you out and cause you to lose water weight, muscle mass over time, and then slow your metabolism down if you don't know how to appropriately get out of that lower calorie range. Alternatively, what I see is when you are coming out of the lower calorie range, you're either in a plan that's so restrictive that you end up causing yourself to burn out, and then you go to the completely opposite end of the scale and you just go back to your old habits. You haven't built any systems, you haven't built any routines, and now you're just back into your old habits, and this causes you to either gain everything back really quickly and feel like you can't see results unless you're on this restrictive plan forever. And really what we're missing here is strategy, habitual routines that you've actually built in that make sense for what you need to focus on, and ensuring that you're focusing on the right things that are going to keep you in a caloric deficit, as well as a high structured nutrition profile for ensuring your protein and your calories are at a steady state that's going to ensure that you're maintaining muscle mass and building muscle mass as you go. And that's also going to come from a proper strength training routine that is built on progressive overload strategy and ensuring that you have consistency long term. Time under tension is your best friend when it comes to building muscle mass. And if that piece is missing, consistency is missing, and then nutrition is missing, you're not going to see results. We're just going to see that things are kind of going in the same direction, and you have this cycle of burning yourself out and not sure what's wrong, and then you don't know what to fix. So let's talk about what an appropriate body recomposition looks like and how you would structure this out for yourself if this is a goal of yours. The first thing you want to do is ensure that you have a proper lifting routine, and this isn't something that you're going to be changing every other day, every other week, or even every 6 weeks. This needs to be a proper plan that you follow consistently and that you have adherence to at least 3 to 5 times per week, where you're going to be training every single muscle group at least once per week. This can vary in the way that you do the split. It does not matter. There is no perfect split, and it really depends on the way that you like to structure your training, the amount of time you have, and your ability to stay consistent in those training sessions. I see a lot of programs that are built on 3 full body days. You can build it out in upper body or lower body splits. You can build it out into different supersets and different body groups depending on how you like to structure your training. There's no perfect training plan. It comes down to what fits your lifestyle, what's realistic for you for timeline, and how much do you actually adhere to the plan. If you're constantly switching your workouts, if you're constantly switching your routines, you're going to hurt your progress long term, because time under tension is your best friend when it comes to building muscle mass. And oftentimes that comes from the most boring plans that you're consistently doing week over week and that you're adding progression to slowly. That does not mean that you have to do every single exercise the same for the rest of your life, but oftentimes that means that you're building upon the same exercises. You're not going to be reprogramming squats every other week because they bore you. You're going to be finding creative ways to incorporate the same exercises in your routine and ensure that you are building strength over time. And if If you're not doing that part, you're probably going to have a really hard time if you're constantly jumping from plan to plan, because the more creative your plans get, the more that it causes you to just kind of be burning effort more than it does cause you to build muscle mass. The second piece is making sure that your lift is structured and that you have a good strategy for how you're building muscle mass. Building muscle mass, you need to have hypertrophy in your training, basically meaning that you are training your muscles to grow and develop. The key that you need to look for in your workouts is, are they challenging? Are they frequent? And are you pushing yourself in exercises? And the way you can do this is by looking at your sets and your reps. When you look at your sets, you want to aim for around 3 to 5 sets depending on the exercise. Generally 3 to 4 sets for isolated movements and 4 to 5 sets for compounded movements. The reason you do this is you want your compounded movements so that you can be heavy and you can be focusing on progression over time, because they're working on multiple different muscle groups. In your exercises, you want to make sure that your reps are around failure, and they can be anywhere from 1 to around 5 reps between failure. I generally recommend the window of 1 to 3 because it's easier for you to kind of tell in that window of what your weight selection needs to be. And when I say failure, I mean that you could not do another rep. So you would get to that rep range and you could not physically do another rep if you wanted to. That needs to be your indicator if your weights are heavy enough and if you are following a progressive overload plan. Isolated movements, you can generally train to failure or within 1 rep of failure. Compounded movements are anywhere within that 1 to 3 range, and they might change based on the number of sets that you complete and the amount of weight that you increase over time. So keep that in mind, but that's the goal that you want to be looking at when you are strength training and when you are building in progression to your plan. The second component is your nutrition, and this is probably the most crucial when it comes to a body recomposition. When you are focusing on your nutrition, you want to ensure that you are not under eating and that you're not under eating specifically on protein and carbohydrates. These are going to be the main driving forces for building muscle mass and ensuring that protein synthesis occurs after your training. This also means that you want to pay attention to your nutrition timing, and that's going to be centering your nutrition around your workout period and ensuring that you're getting enough of the macronutrients you need for training, which is going to be mostly carbohydrates pre-training and then mostly protein with a mix of carbohydrates post-training, ensuring that you're refueling from your workouts. Remember that during your training, you are building muscle mass, but that causes your body to break down so it can get stronger and adapt. After your training, we're focusing on nutrition so that you can recover, build, and get stronger. Without that component, results are going to be hard to follow. So you have to make sure that you're fueling your body and giving it the things that it needs so that it can have these results happen, and not underfueling and making it rely on itself, where it's going to get the easiest sources that it can, which we want to avoid because it can come from muscle mass. And that just means that all that work we're doing is going to be wasted if we're pulling from our muscle mass for energy. So the core things you want to look at with your nutrition for a recomp: ensuring you're eating enough protein, eating protein consistently, and ensuring that that protein is also coming in after training. Your protein should be anywhere from 0.8 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight. It's going to be different based on where you're at in your training goal and in your nutrition goal right now. Ensure you're eating that consistently. I recommend at least 6 days a week, if not 7 days a week, for your protein goal. And then ensuring that if you're tracking outside of that, which is generally the best way to ensure that you're being consistent, that you are hitting your macro ranges consistently and setting around 10 grams plus or minus your protein goal every single day. And the reason why protein is so important, and within that range of 0.8 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight, that range consistently shows benefits of preserving or building lean muscle mass during a fat loss phase. So that's going to be a crucial component for paying attention to your nutrition and ensuring you're getting enough protein and that you're eating enough protein consistently. We're not talking about Monday through Thursday. We're talking about every single day throughout the week, even on non-training days. The third thing you want to make sure that you aren't doing is a massive calorie deficit, especially when you are in a recomp phase. The lower the caloric deficit, the harder it is to preserve lean muscle mass during that time, which can be more of a fat loss phase and a weight loss phase than it's going to be a true body recomp. You want to be in a strategic fat loss caloric deficit. It's going to help you lose body fat. This can come from training and from nutrition, or it can come from one or the other, but you don't want to go too low. Generally, I recommend not going below 500 calories from your deficit, even for an aggressive fat loss phase, but aiming more for around 200 to 300 calories as a strategic body recomposition deficit, and ensuring that you aren't going too low and under fueling, causing you to lose lean muscle mass. And then the last thing to determine if your body recomp is successful and ensuring you have a successful body recomp is tracking the right data. If you are looking at the wrong data, if you're constantly tracking only the scale, you're not going to get the full picture. That's really going to take away from the true body recomp that we're looking for. Sometimes, and I see this very frequently, the scale barely moves, if at all. I have clients who have had body recomp increase their weights, and I've had it decrease their weight. And then some I've had stay the same. And it truly just depends on how your body likes to hold body weight and how much muscle mass you're developing, how much body fat you're losing, and what that recomp looks for you. There's no perfect number, and it's going to be very dependent upon a few key factors. First, you need to track your body progress photos. This is going to be the biggest indicator of success over the next couple of weeks. I would track these either bi-weekly or every single month on the first of the month, just to make sure you have consistency and you can see your frequent changes. I would also track measurements with a fabric measuring tape and ensure that you can see the areas that you are trying to purposefully recomp so you can track progress. Now, remember, if you're tracking the build of muscle mass, like if you're using your bicep for a metric, if you don't have a lot of muscle mass in your bicep, that measurement may get bigger as you increase your muscle mass. So it doesn't necessarily mean that measurement needs to get smaller. It needs to be strategic based on the specific goal for the body recomp. And then lastly, looking at your biometrics. How's your cycle? How is your energy? How is your sleep? Those are going to be indicators of if you're having a successful recomp as well, especially if you're coming out of a very heavy deficit and your energy has been lower and you've not been feeling your best. Those are usually key indicators that you're heading in the right direction and your body is improving and growing. The other physique metric that I would be tracking as well is how your clothes fit. Are they changing? Are you noticing that things feel looser, that they feel better, and that they fit better? Those are going to be indicators along with progress photos and measurements that'll tell you how your body is truly recomping, not just looking at the scale. If you are going to be tracking your body composition and looking at the percentages, some key metrics I like to track, there's either DEXA scans that are offered at big major gyms that you can do. I also have a Hume Health scale and I have used it for years. I have a lot of clients who use it and I truly love this device. It is a great tool to determine your overall body composition and gives you a bigger picture of what your body mass looks like compared to even breaking down on which side is potentially stronger when it comes to your right or your left side and your different limbs of where you might be carrying more muscle mass or less muscle mass. So it's a great way to kind of analyze the overall data if you're looking at that information as well. I'll link the one that I have down in the show notes. So the first thing I would do is go and listen to the effort episode if you haven't listened to that one yet and understanding why effort doesn't necessarily correlate to results. I would also go through and I have a couple episodes that go over how to goal set and make sure that your goals are tied to the outcome that you're looking for. Those are great ways to kind of get started and understanding which way you need to go and what you need to do to evaluate your goals and building habits. But you really need to sit down and understand what your specific goal is, what that's going to look like for you. If that's a physique goal, if that is a body recomp percentage goal in terms of like increasing muscle mass, what that looks like, and ensuring that you understand how you're going to do that through your training split. You need to understand where your eating is at, how much you need to change that, and how that is going to impact your overall results to build out that plan. And then you can use the data that we kind of shared in this episode to ensure that your plan aligns with being successful in that. If you're looking for help with this, there's some resources down below to get you started for free, as well as ways to work with me if you want some support in guiding you, ensuring that you have the right plan and you have the support along you weekly to ensure your numbers are right in terms of macros, your plan is right in terms of progression, and that we're tracking the right data over time so that you can see success in the next 4 to 6 months. And I have the other options of ways to work with me listed down below in the show notes. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode, and I'll talk to you next week in the next episode.